Hello and welcome to a very special interview today with Dr. Philipp Ackermann. He is the ambassador of Germany in India. He speaks to NDTV at a time when there is great political upheaval, challenges in India and around the world as well. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to NDTV.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So we speak at a time when India is at a state of heightened preparedness and the security apparatus is on full preparation right now. I would like to first start by asking you your official reaction, your statement on the developments that have unfolded in the last 24 to 36 hours.
So I think what we should start with is, saying how shocked and how, perturbed we still are by the terrorist attack in Pahalgam on 22nd of April. I think that's the starting point, and you might have seen that the German government then has really showed a very, very high degree of solidarity right away, because we feel that this is one of the most perfidious terrorist attacks we've seen in the last years, and I think it is a disgrace and it is a terrible, terrible happening, which our hearts go out to the families of those who lost their loved ones, and we are really still under shock about this event. Now, after this, the tension has unfolded, and we have been following what happened as much as we can. Information is not easy to get, but I think what we are hoping for now is that at some stage diplomacy will come in the game again, and we'll have the beginning of a de-escalation. I think my conviction is that the government of India, but also the government of Pakistan, have no interest in evolving this crisis into a huge, full-fledged military action, and I think that the world is looking with great attention to what happens here. At the end of the day, we need de-escalation in order to avoid another crisis in a time full of crises. Actually, you look everywhere and you see a very, very tense situation in the world. My experience with the Indian government is that it is a very reasonable, internationally extremely involved government that wants to be seen as a government that brings peace rather than conflict. And my trust is that this government will prevail with this attitude also in the future.
The Operation Sindoor that India launched, after that it did speak to important stakeholders around the world. In fact, Dr. Jaishankar has been in touch with his counterpart in Germany as well. He's reached out to German leaders as well and communicated that India responded to the Pahalgam terror attack that you mentioned about, sir. And since then, Pakistan has escalated the tensions in the last 24 hours. It has attacked 15 cities in India. The military installations were the targets. All those were thwarted by India. But those missiles and drones, those are there. And that really increased the escalation suddenly in the conflict. Your response to that in the wake of what Pakistan did. And then, of course, India responded.
Yeah, the interesting, you mentioned that the phone conversation. I have to tell you that it was an interesting phone conversation with the German foreign minister, who had taken oath one day before this phone conversation. And there is a tradition of Germany going to France as in the first day. French and German cooperation is like no other in the world. So whenever there is a new chancellor, there is a new foreign minister, people go to France right away. So the foreign minister went to Paris, got in the car with his French counterpart, and in the car they phoned Dr. Jaishankar together. So this is maybe the first phone call he made in his new function together with the French foreign minister, and shows also how big an importance we attach to India and what happens in India.
So the first foreign conversation of the German foreign minister
was with Dr. Jaishankar together with the French counterpart next to each other in a car. And that shows, how seriously we take India and how, attentively we observe what's happening on the ground. So, as I said before, we have followed as much as we can the development during the last days. You are right when you say it has a new level of escalation is there. That's certainly true. But we still do hope that, a reason will come and say, that every government concerned will, try to walk on the way towards a de-escalation. I think that's what is needed now.
Since then, since the phone call, the two sides are in touch.
So what we are now planning for is a first call between the Chancellor and the Prime Minister of India. This has been we are still in the scheduling phase, and that will become in the coming days. They will talk, and that will certainly also figure high on the agenda. But I have to tell you one thing, we are talking crisis all the time. There's one element which also will be high on the agenda, namely that Germany and India this very day have concluded their strategic partnership 25 years ago. And I think this partnership, and you should also mention that in this rather dark times, is a huge success. And the new government in Germany is completely decided to take it up where it is and even bring it up to another level. And that will be also one of the subjects the new Chancellor will take up with the Prime Minister of India.
And that will be an important part of the phone call that will take place. Is it likely to take place in the next couple of days?
I think it will have a scheduling fixed in the next couple of days.
So security as well as trade and economic cooperation will be the important aspects of this conversation?
Exactly. So I think when you look at the partnership as it stands right now, it has very, very sound pillars on which it is based. Economy is one of them. More than 2,000 companies in the German companies in India, but which nobody knows really, 650 Indian companies investing in Germany. That's a lot. It's grown over the last years. Then we have a very, very vibrant and very interesting partnership when it comes to green and sustainable development, when it comes to fighting climate change, when it comes to adding renewables to the energy portfolio, when it comes to smart cities initiatives. So that will be on the agenda. We have, of course, geopolitics. That's, of course, an important part of this agenda, and that includes more and more military cooperation. You know that the German armed forces have been very much involved with the Indian armed forces over the last couple of years. We had a huge Air Force exercise in Coimbatore last August. We had a frigate and a provision ship coming to Port Cole in Goa in October last year. So that will be certainly one of the important issues. And a fourth issue, which is of growing importance to us, is migration. Germany is in dire need for skilled labor, and India is a very interesting country. We have a growing Indian diaspora in Germany doing very well, being very successful. We have a growing number of Indian students in German academic institutions and universities, and I think that is a very good basis for further development.
That's an important aspect you mentioned. Essentially, people to people, economic, strategic, and geopolitics, all that is likely to come together.
Absolutely.
And in the last 25 years, sir, where have you seen this kind of growth in the relationship, if you could identify, taking from military politics to, of course, the economic aspect?
I would say, it started as a business / a geopolitic partnership, but it has developed into a multi-level partnership. You will not believe how many working groups between India and Germany exist. Also very granular questions like hydrogen, very important for us. India might be an energy exporter at some time in the near future. So we are very interested in that. We have military cooperation, which grew over the last 2 years, I would say, has reached really a new level. And that includes also arms procurement, cooperation between private arms and defense production companies. And also, as I said, the military cooperation. You might have heard of the submarine deal, which Germany is bidding for, where we wait for an Indian answer. But also, the migration subject has come to our radar screen 2-3 years ago. So I would say in the last 3 years, we have seen an exponential growth of this partnership. And I think that this growth rate will continue in the years to come.
Indeed, and I think trade is a very important aspect of it. Also at a time when there are such global trade uncertainties. I wouldn't use the word tensions, but there are great uncertainties. Forcing, someone like UK, which has been able to successfully close 2 trade pacts, including with India. But how do you see the trade scenario that exists, and that is likely to impact the India-Germany trade as well?
So you see that India's economy is going global. You see that the Indian private sector is now top-notch in many, many ways. You see so many companies being active in Europe, in the United States, in Australia, in Canada. So Indian private sector is very self-confident and expanding also. And that, I think, is the best precondition to really sit down to negotiate a free trade agreement with the European Union. Germany has given the competences to negotiate free trade agreements to the European Union, and we are very, very interested and also pushing for this negotiation. We have seen with great satisfaction that when the Commission of the European Union came here in February, that the President von der Leyen and Prime Minister Modi have decided to put a negotiated agreement on the table by the end of this year. I think it's an ambitious but very, very timely determination, and we are completely behind it. So we hope that when the EU-India summit will take place sometime in the fourth quarter of this year, we'll have something on the table which shows that the uncertainties you were referring to are countered by countries and economic blocs, like the European Union is one, to promote and foster global trade and free trade. I think that's the this is the subject of the hour, as it were, and you need more of these trade agreements to that everybody can benefit from this global trade. And I will tell you one thing: the German companies here are really eagerly waiting for this free trade agreement, because it will undoubtedly lead to more investment here in India. The moment when tariffs are low and you can import stuff which can be produced and manufactured here, investment will also grow. And that's also a hope of the Indian side. And I think once we have the free trade agreement, you will see that there is more people coming to India and investing in India.
This is a pact that has gone up and down, on and off for like 15 years, 2008 onwards. Governments have changed, coalitions have changed, so on and so forth. But there is now a leadership level commitment. Yeah. Do you expect that this could probably be like a phase one sort of a pact to at least get things going? Or do you expect, because Germany is essentially the industrial hub and the backbone of Europe to that extent, the EU economy, do you expect it to actually be a full-fledged pact that may come through in the fourth quarter?
So this is a very interesting question, and I would be a little cautious. It's a comprehensive agreement is difficult, and I think positions are on many issues are still quite far from each other. But I think that when the Prime Minister of India gives the commission to the cabinet to negotiate it, same is valid for the European side. I think I'm very confident that something will be on the table. It might not be in every granular detail negotiated, but the big framework, I feel we can be confident to have it by the end of
place. And how important is migration in that? It's very important for India as well, because that ends up becoming a bit of a roadblock at some time in terms of ensuring that India's skilled labor has access to other markets. Do you think, given the fact that several developed markets in Europe do need access to Indian skilled labor, it will actually throw up more opportunities for Indians here?
Yes, I'm completely sure that this will lead to more migration from India to Europe. Europe has basically every country of Europe have the same problem. Now it depends on their national legislation, of course, how to deal with migration.
But I'm also asking because there's now a growing sentiment that is there across the continent.
I understand, there is
against migration.
And I think you cannot deny that there is a certain reserve when it comes to migration. Which is illegal in the way that people enter and ask for asylum or come illegally and disappear in the black market or something that people are not happy with. And the new government of Germany has started saying that they will be very rigid on illegal migration. But at the same time, legal and fair migration is very much in our interest. And you have to convince the population, and basically I think we succeed to a certain extent to say we need just skilled labor, and if you create the conditions, if you have a legal framework that allows it, then migrants are welcome. The moment migrants in Germany get jobs, pay their taxes, and don't undermine the social welfare system, that's, I think, the thinking of the people, they are very much welcome. And I think the Indian diaspora, we have about 3 lakh Indians in Germany right now, so it's not a huge diaspora, but it's a considerable one, already does better than in their average income than the average German income. So they are very successful, and I think very much appreciated as a diaspora. So I think there are other groups that are looked at with more suspicion, if I may say so, by the population, but the Indians do not belong to this.
That's a very reassuring statement, sir. Let me then ask you about how much does the Trump administration's trade policies have a larger impact on it impacts the world we live in, it impacts the overall sentiment when it comes to trade, economic policies. How much are these impacting the overall trade negotiations, whether it is EU-India or whether it is EU-US. That is also, again, something that not in the cold storage, but definitely not thought.
Yeah, and I think that they are, at the same time, you see the negotiations between the US and India right now. Yeah. Now, I think what is important for all business, and I talk in generic terms here, is reliability and trustworthiness. So when you feel that markets are to be explored and are to be conquered with a legal framework that is reliable and trustworthy, people will go. So what was the problem of the last couple of months is the volatility. One day tariffs, next day no tariffs, third day tariffs again. So that's not something we were striving for. We want to have a steady development, negotiations that would lead at a certain stage to an FTA that is then also, set in stone. You can't just change it from one day to the other. Now, I see in the US now a certain willingness to open up for trade deals, and the UK trade deals you just mentioned is one of them. So, and India-US trade deal will be another. So I feel that we are now maybe entering calmer waters in that, hoping, let's say, in that regard. But it is very important to show also to the rest of the world that partners like the EU and India can up in a very, very well negotiated FTA that is beneficial for both sides and will negotiate as such that it is valid for a long, long time. Yeah? And that's, I think, a very, very important message. A message that the Commission, when President von der Leyen, when she came here with the collegium, she said very clearly, we are a reliable and trustworthy partner, and that's very important in these days.
Last couple of questions, sir. First, I want to, of course, ask, we are speaking on a day when the India-Germany relationship has completed a milestone. As someone who understands India as well as Germany now, what would be your expectations of, let's say, the next 5 years in terms of the vision and the roadmap for this relationship?
So I think we will proceed in a couple of areas in quite a quick pace. We will certainly grow economically. Our trade volume will grow in the coming years because both sides will invest in India and in Germany reciprocally. And then I think migration will be much more on our agenda. We'll receive more Indians in Germany for skilled labor and I'm telling you, it's not only the IT engineers we're looking for, we're also looking for craftsmen, for nurses, for caregivers, for bus drivers. I mean, it's really across the board. And the third thing I think will be very important for us is evolving in this partnership for green and sustainable development, trying to sit down together with this Indian academic institutions, private sector, government, to figure how we can jointly fight climate change and how we can jointly develop technology in order to improve, the life on the planet. When you live in India, like we do here in the embassy, you see a different level of being exposed to climate change than in Europe. And therefore, for my personal part, I've learned in the last 3 years how much and how important an issue that is, and how well you can work together with India on this issue, and how concretely you can work together with India.
Indeed. And so, final question as we wrap this up, and taking on from what we started this conversation with, and I remember what you started this with was the terror attack. I want to ask you that what is the kind of mechanism, roadmap that the world can have in terms of dealing with terror? Because this is not just something that impacts India, it's a global scourge.
No, it's a global phenomenon. You go across the world, you find terrorism. In my country, we have been exposed, less than India, but we have been exposed to terrorism lately, with attacks from loners, from single persons who drove cars into masses and killed people. So in a very, very unfortunate and extremely depressing way. So what one can do is joining hands, I think internationally joining hands to fight terror. That needs to be a mixture from intelligence, intelligence information, trying to develop also de-radicalization measures. So it's a mixed bag that you have to develop and to work with. It is not an easy solution, but I think internationally you can do more than nationally only. And in Europe we have now common strategy to fight terrorism. Of course, they will never be 100% successful, but I think there are measures that can be taken in order to prevent people from getting radicalized and end up in this terrible, terrible situation where, Pahalgam, I will never forget how terrible that was, selecting according to religion, and this is really the worst thing that happens, and we have to try to figure out how we reduce the danger as much as we can.
Thank you so much, sir, for taking out the time and speaking to NDTV.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.